Well, Kevin mentioned what a great day and a lot of hard work by a whole lot of people. First of all, I thought our coaching staff had come up with a plan, and then we worked the plan. You'll hear from our recruiting office on some of the specifics of some of these players. I'm going to make a couple brief comments, overarching themes, what our emphasis was, and then where we landed. I can't tell you we signed 18 guys today. There's still one guy that's out there that we're working with the U.S. Embassy over in the Ivory Coast. Obviously, I did not go to the Ivory Coast, but because of family travel plans, we're working with the Ivory Coast to get the letter. And so a shout out to the State Department. We found the U.S. Embassy has been great to work with, but some of the logistics have not quite gone as smooth as what we might have planned. But getting back to this class, first of all, a lot going on. We're playing football. We're excited about this game that we're playing. So beyond the recruiting, we're preparing for an exciting bowl game. So a lot of activity, which is where we want to be. And I think certainly the success of this season, starting out with the Missouri win and then continuing on, really helped us solidify that our football program is on solid ground, and we became a very attractive school for a lot of prospects. And so these 18 guys, and hopefully the youngster that will have the letter forthcoming, is a great start. What we really looked at doing was always starting close by. I think it's important for us to recognize the high school football in the state of Wyoming. It's been a point of emphasis for us, and while we are not heavily populated, we think that the coaches and the players in this state actually overproduce, and so we're excited about signing Caleb Driscoll from Gillette, and that's a great signee for us. I think he's got a bright future. I watched Caleb play. He played linebacker. We're going to flip him over to the fullback position. And I saw him go up and really be a physical player at the point of attack and knock guys back. And so we're one of the few teams that still use a fullback. And so I want to make note of Wyoming and how important that is. And we've signed somebody from the state every year since I've been our head coach. And so I think that that's important. We'll continue to do that. We also I think we've laid some great groundwork in the state of Colorado. I believe there's maybe 6 or 7 guys. I don't know maybe with this guy that's still out there. That's been a point of emphasis, and I think we've made a big concerted, a lot of inroads. And what we found, building relationship with high school coaches, and then a positive experience for our players who are from the state of Colorado. And that has been our best recruiting tool that we have. And I think that beyond Wyoming and Colorado, that's been a backbone of our long-term success. And so that's been a point of emphasis, not only this year, but in the past. The state of Nebraska is also important. So that's kind of a tri-state area for us. I think we've done well in those areas. We signed 2 players from the state of Nebraska, and Ian will talk about those guys in a little bit. But I just want to go through our model, as that's our initial footprint. We think because of players from this region really understand the fabric of what Cowboy football is about. There's a long history that goes back to not only Bob Devaney, but Paul Roach and some of the great iconic coaches that have been here. And so that area is going to continue to be important for us. And then we branched out into other areas. The state of Texas is turning out to be a pretty fruitful area for us. California certainly is big, and then we continue to be everywhere from the Pacific Northwest over to the Wisconsin area, all the way down, as I said, to Texas. And so a big net. We think that that's important to do if we want to continue to make strides for us to win the Mountain West Conference, and that's going to be important. We're striving for consistency. I think this group is going to be noted to really initially fortifying our lines of scrimmage, both on the offensive line and the defensive line. And I think you'll see us have an addition on one of those sides of the ball. And so we're really well pleased with that. A couple other positions that I think, we're always important to find a quarterback, which we've been able to do, find a running back, which we've been able to do. And we still got some work to do, I think, at the wide receiver position. And so we're continuing to cull through some guys there. I think the corner position is another position that we'll look to add some guys in the second signing date. But some of these other positions we're really, really happy with. And so we have these guys in the bank. It was a great start. We're going to continue to move forward, certainly recruit. We cannot leave campus, but we'll be in touch with a lot of coaches and players during this next signing period. Our interns have done a phenomenal job. Recruiting is a continual process. You need to be recruiting all year long. This class is a reflection of a year's work, and as Ian was saying, actually 2 years' work. And so we're really pleased. Did we get everybody we wanted? No. I think any coach that says that they did, they're out and out lying to you, or they're not recruiting the right guys. But I do think we got a lion's share of the guys that we wanted in this first class. As I said, we came up with a plan between the camps that we were able to go to, our camp here, spring recruiting. It all makes a difference. I also want to say thanks to our administration. What happened, as Kevin was saying, 7 years ago, this was the beginning part of the Cowboy match, and those dollars have allowed us to be able to do thorough jobs in recruiting, and it's beginning to show with the performance and consistent performance on our field. So I want to note that as well. So at this time, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that are out there, because I can comment on each one of these guys right now. The only guy I can't comment is the guy over in the Ivory Coast.
Have you ever had such an embarrassment of riches on the offensive line before?
Say that again. This is a long, good question.
So have you ever had such an embarrassment of riches before on the offensive line like this?
An embarrassment of riches?
So many guys to choose from.
Just speak plainly. We're in Wyoming. You know what? No, but we needed to fortify our offensive line. You can see the number of injuries we've had and the benefit that we've had by having those players out there. I think we worked really hard. That was a point of emphasis. And then sometimes the stars align right too. Some of the guys that fall one way or the other, this is a case where some of the stars fell in the right way. And offensive line and defensive line, those positions are guys that you really recruit, and then you count on them playing typically in about 2 or 3 years. And so these guys are going to be part of that. Some of them may play earlier, but the potential's there, the work habits are there, the size, and so we're really pleased with that.
Offensive tackle, you signed 2 of them. I know that's a position that's sort of thin for you guys.
And we could have more.
Would you look to add more than that?
Yes. Yep. Never know when another letter's going to come in. Okay? Yeah, but that's an important position. And if you look in the NFL where they pay big money, that's one of those positions. Other questions are out. Yes, David.
Coach, you've built kind of a base with these recruiting classes. Is there some sort of kind of overall mark that you look at with this class, just adding to that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is when Tom Berman and I first met, he stated very plainly that he wanted to play Cowboy tough football. And beyond having a slogan on the T-shirt, players do make a difference. In those Cowboy tough guys, there has to be players who really come here because they buy into what the University of Wyoming is about. And we begin to, you hear the word culture in a locker room, that's beginning to permeate through our football team. The older players are talking to the younger players, and then the guys that we attract in recruiting are buying into that. And so whether it's the lines of scrimmage, which some of the other members from the media talked about, the offensive line or defensive line, it's just a whole mantra with all those other guys. And we think that's going to be our ace in the hole. We feel like for us to be successful and ultimately win the conference and then continue to be one of the premier teams, you've got to be tough here. Football is a physical game. I say it's a man's game played by men, and it'll bare your soul naked. And that's our brand of football that we play. And so we're attracting those guys, and we think by having that type of mentality, that's going to allow us to be consistent. Now, beyond that, we've got to have speed and athleticism, which we think we're addressing. However, I think that some of those need to be supplemented in the second class. Yes.
Are there any plans for any of the guys to enroll early?
Yes. A couple of them, I think right now we have plans for 2, I believe, Ian. 2 that are going to enroll early, and that's been sprinkled from time to time. There's a real benefit. Last year you saw the benefit with Levi Williams coming in early. He's been able to be further along as a freshman, and so we're excited about that.
Can you talk a little more about that Alawasi, if I got that right?
I call him Shady.
Oh, there you go.
Double O.
Yeah, double O, that works.
How do you say it again?
The full name?
Huh?
The full name?
Yeah.
Oluwaseyi.
Damn, he's doing
A
good.
little shady.
Shade.
Seems like you guys just found.
Well, how we found him, we were down at the Stephen F. Austin camp, and that's a camp that it's in East Texas. That's somewhat of a football-rich area, but it attracted players from Dallas, Fort Worth, and along with that, Houston. A lot of the coaches that were in the Big 12 were down there, so there was a lot of people there. I know this. He was a defensive end, and we clocked him. And he was clocked a couple times, low 4.5 or under 4.5. He had a big frame, great explosion. We saw him on one-on-one drills. We were fired up about him, and then we accelerated the recruiting process. He fell in love with us. He came up to the Missouri game. It was a great atmosphere, and then he committed. He held firm through this whole recruiting process. It's an area. I lived in Houston for 5 years. It's in the Fort Bend area. It's an emerging area, but we think he's a really, really talented player.
Would it be safe to maybe compare him to a Carl Granderson type? Is that young and thin?
I think he's further along than Carl. Carl was a stand-up, skinny guy. If he stood sideways, you couldn't hardly see him. Carl was he was taller, but Shea is more explosive at that age, and so the opportunity for him to play, be ready-made. Carl played at a young age because we had to have him, but we think this guy's really, really an outstanding player. Yes.
I know you're not big, the biggest guy on stars, but right at half of your commit signings are 3-star kids. I'm curious.
I didn't know that. That's the first time I knew that.
You talked about obviously winning the Mountain West, and you're in the same division as the Boise team that recruits at a very high level. Was there a more concerted effort to bring in more higher caliber talent?
Here's what we will not lose sight of. We knew, Davis said, consistency and certainly beating Missouri was a big, big start. But sometimes what happens is guys lose track of who they are, and they start, okay, we can attract, and I didn't know that all these guys had more stars, but what happens is some coaches take their eye off the ball and they forget, let's dance with who brought us. And so then you start trying to recruit these hotshot recruits, and you get these prima donna guys. And so what we did not do was veer off from our profile. And now, what occurred was because of the success, we got better, higher graded talent. But I gave it marching orders to our staff. Let's not forget who we are, what kind of guy we're looking for. But I know this, they're damn good football players. And whoever gives out those stars is going to sound like an arrogant statement. I think I forgot more than some of those guys know on them stars. And that sounds arrogant, I know, but they're good, and maybe some other people recognized it. I know I think it is the best class we've had since I've been our head coach. I can tell you that. And that's a pretty bold statement because I think we've done well, but this one's a good one. I think we're going to add some more good players here.
How many more are you looking at adding in total with the class?
We're at 18 right now. We're in hopes we're going to get to 19 really shortly. And so then you're looking at, maybe the low 20s as we go. We could potentially go up to 25, but there's some wiggle room that we have here. And so, if you get to 22, 23, we'll see where we're at. We're always also, and the term, I know it was on ESPN today and everybody's talking about the transfer portal. We are cautious about delving into that. However, if you looked at this last year, the 2 guys that we added from transfers, I think were both hits. and they fit into the makeup of our team, and they were good players.
On the subject of the transfer portal,
Yes.
what's Tyler's situation now that he's applied for that? Does that affect anything?
You know, Tyler has been a great teammate, and he's done everything that we've asked him to do here. He's going to graduate. He's been a supportive teammate, and so these are options. When guys come and they fulfill what they aim to do is graduate, then we're all supportive of that. We want to wish him the very best as he moves forward. I do know that he's got a laser-like focus on this football game, as he's had good practices. But we looked, and he had indicated that he was going to look to graduate early, which we were supportive of, obviously. And so we had put some things in place. I think this was really going to be important to sign a quarterback in this class. And so we looked for, our makeup of our guy, and we think Gavin is that guy, a guy who is a multi-sport guy who's played other positions, that's got good height. And if you look at between, Josh Allen, Carson Wentz, and maybe the Levi and Sean, they all have that athleticism. So we're excited about Gavin, but it was imperative. It was imperative that we sign our quarterback, and Gavin was the one we wanted.
So this didn't catch you by surprise?
No, not at all.
Coach, safe to say wide receiver maybe a big emphasis for a couple spots moving forward?
Yeah, and we have some concern about that. I'm not concerned, but it is. And we've got a board, and we don't show that board to anybody, but it's hidden. But there's a board with a whole lot of good players on there, and a lot of those guys, as we went through, we kind of knew where we were at. But it's going to be important that we sign a couple, at least two, and potentially three at that spot. I think we're establishing being able to run the football better, and our numbers indicate that, but we cannot be one-dimensional. We have to be able to be more explosive and throw the ball better. We have to have a higher completion percentage, and that comes into protecting up front, which these offensive linemen down the road are going to help with, to be able to run the football. But we have to be able to complete it better, but also, moreover, get more explosive plays. If you remember back, I think in our 16 season between Hollister and Tanner, it was just big play after big play. We've got to get back to doing that. Yes.
Will linebackers also be kind of a point of emphasis?
We'll probably sign one more. And so, we were in a dogfight with a couple guys there, and it didn't go our way, but there's a good pool there. And like I said, if you get everybody that you wanted, the bar's not high enough. But yeah, we need to sign another linebacker.